Good morning, everyone. I hope you're charged up and excited to hear the second part of the series. I hope you've done some work looking at capitalism, and if you have done so, you will find that some of the things that I talk about will just make so much more sense. So I urge you to do that before you start listening to the series if you haven't already. So we have started this journey of Judges, and we've now landed on this prophetess named Deborah, who's this amazing woman, and we're going to look at how she managed, through God's grace and through apostolic endowment of favor, was able to bring rest into the city, and how she was able to overcome this demon called capitalism. So if we look at what capitalism is, it's essentially a two-class system. You've got a capitalist class and you've got a working class. So a capitalist class means that they own the means to produce and distribute goods or services. So they're the owners, they're the capitalist class. Then you have the working class, and those are the ones that sell their labor to the capitalist in the exchange of money or wages. So you've got the business owners, and then you've got the workers. So the workers are selling their services in exchange for a salary at the end of the month. And in between, we have those that specialize in education or some form of training, and they form a subclass between these two classes. So they are just in between the two, because they are neither the merchant, neither are they full-on workers. So we find that the way that the economy in the world is running, the economy is run by a corporation. Corporation is a big company, an independent entity made up of boards and the brains behind what runs that corporation. So they are the ones that own, they are the number one businesses. So they own and operate companies, and they make decisions as to how its resources are going to be used. So you find that the motive of all these companies is to sell goods, sell services only for profit, and eliminate any intervention that reduces profit. So the idea is that I only want something or someone in my company that is going to help me make a profit. If a system or if something is not going to help me make profit, so if it costs me more to use a higher quality substance, or if I'm making shoes, a high quality leather, it's going to reduce my profits. Let me not use the high quality, let me use the substandard. So these companies now, these corporations, are run with minimal governmental intervention, which means that they can set the prices based on demand and supply. And this is all for the purpose of making a profit. So for true capitalism to operate, there's got to be a competitive market, because if there's no competitive market, then it means that this is a monopoly. So they don't want monopolies to exist. So the power of capitalism exists in its ability to adopt and change and improve inefficiencies within the economic structures. So when we consider Jabin, the intelligent merchant and trafficker, we see that that's exactly what capitalism is. It is this intelligent mentality that is able to adopt, that is able to change, that is able to improve any inefficiency, but it has only one goal in mind, and that is to make money. So it traffics people. These are the workers that are selling their services to to the ones that own the resources. And then they become enslaved in financial bondage. So you'll find that a capitalist will preach health. They preach health because they say, we are giving you the options to choose between organic food and the inorganic food. You can be thin or you can be fat. We give you the options for health through options. We're giving you health through options. If you look at the great medical insurance companies, now they track your health. Now we have these Apple Watches that monitor your heart rate, that monitor your steps, and all of this is done for under the glamour of, you know what, we want you to be healthy, we want you to be better. But actually they are tracking your health. And when it comes to you having some sort of operation, or if you have any heart disease, they have already tracked your whole life, and they know whether or not you are worthy of their big payout or not. So we get seduced into thinking that they have our best interest in heart, but all they care about is profits. They tell you that capitalism is for social good. They teach that this is a self-perpetuating system, and that it is man's best shot at beating scarcity and poverty. They give us the options for recreation and safety. They tell us how to invest our money. It's not true. We'll see why. They tell us that capitalism is the only answer for equality, that everybody has a chance to make it big. You've just got to work harder, and maybe you'll be able to work yourself into some sort of reward at the end of the day. They say that capitalism, it feeds into our most basic human nature, and that is to fulfill our desires, and that fulfilling our desires is essential to the human race. But it's actually not human desire, it's greed. It's power. They say capitalism, a capitalist will preach that this is all about being the best. It's all about that competition, and it's all about coming out number one in the front. And what is this about? This is all about freedom. It is freedom to live your life the way you want it. And they tell us that this is actually built on democracy. And that with this democracy, our economy can grow exponentially, provided that, there's no act of God like COVID-19 or some tsunami to come and just bring desolation. They tell us that capitalism is the only way, because every other system for the economy has failed. Communism has failed, fascism has failed, socialism has failed. Everything has failed. The best system for the economy is capitalism. And this is guaranteed to bring you happiness. I don't know if you've heard that before. I don't know if you're working in a big corporate company, and how you have to upgrade, and you've got to learn, and you've got to do more and more tests, and they say we want to skill you. We want to teach you. You look at the big medical insurance companies. They bring in students that have just finished school, and they teach them their protocols of medicine. And so when a doctor, someone who has learned true medicine, who has the craft of medicine in his or her hands, who is the resource of how to treat and how to heal people, they are working with they are trying to get approval from somebody that has not studied medicine. There are people that have made up these protocols, and they only learn this one protocol, and they only know this one way, and they're looking at a piece of paper, but they're not looking at the patient. And all the big brains and all the big money sit right on the top. And all their protocols are for profit. Not profit of the patient, because it's usually not in the best interest of the patient, but profit for the company, for the CEOs that have these big salaries. But the truth of this whole model is that it is a demonic system. It's powered by this ingenious demon that is actually producing inequality. They say that everybody can become rich. All you have to do is just work harder, work harder, work harder. But that's not true. In order for you to make money, it means that you've got to take money from someone else. And you do this through taxation, or you do this through selling. So the rich cannot exist without the poor. So that in itself brings in an inequality. And how do the rich get richer? By underpaying, by bribery, by corruption, by looking at where we can cut, by looking at how we can negotiate better prices, by not paying for services. And if you just look at how many businesses have shut down during COVID-19, you look at how many people didn't get paid by their companies, by the big companies. Why? Think about it. Since I don't know how long, billions of taxpayer money goes into servicing banks. The very same banks that come and have taken the homes of, maybe taken your home, taken the homes of someone that you love, taken the cars of somebody that you love because they couldn't pay. And why do they aggressively come and seize our homes? Why do they do this? They say that they want to teach people to efficiently put their capital to work, otherwise face some serious consequences. If you don't know how to manage your money, if you haven't learned how to manage your money, if you've been overspending, well, you know what? There's a price to pay for it. We're going to come and take away your house. So they propagate this freedom, but they are actually destroying freedom. They are destroying individualism, because you are meant to work within a system as long as you are following these orders. You're not allowed to bring any creativity into this machine, because the creativity has only got to be for that great big machine, that company, to make profit. So everything is driven around profit. Your creativity has to be around profit and not about the person. The second thing that capitalism does is it breeds waste. How? You go to a high-end restaurant and you'll pay 350 Rand for a tiny little piece of steak. Perfectly trimmed, perfect rectangle. It's delicious, it smells delicious. You got a little bit of jus there, you've got a little bit of carrots there. You spend so much of money on this. But they cut that piece of steak out so perfectly. What happened to the rest? It's wasted. You see, the rich waste their excess, while the poor struggle with nothing. And this encourages greed. And with this waste comes starvation. Do you know there is more than enough food on this planet Earth to feed all 7 billion of us? But with the current system, there is only scarcity and poverty for majority of the people. This system of capitalism, it delivers extreme prosperity to a certain group, but extreme poverty to a minority. And because of this, it breeds this anti-social culture, where it's self first, where it's me first. And because of this, there's no empathy. There's no care for others. There's no care for another human being that is starving, that is dying. You find that this lack of empathy for those that would just die because, they're poor, they don't matter as much. This is what keeps the shareholders happy, because it means that there's more profits for them. You find that these big conglomerate companies cause so much of danger to their people around them. They cut corners, they put their staff at risk, they'll be working with chemicals that they know cause cancer. They pump all of these pollutants into our food and into our drugs and into our clothing, into everything, into our water, and it causes so much of harm. It causes, it's actually undemocratic, because governments will only listen to those that are wealthy. And this gives a few rich people the ability to influence governments and have a great influence over the minorities. So they have the ability to buy and sell our communities. They can buy it and upgrade it, or they can sell it and destroy it. They cause so much of pollution. Capitalists make profit from global warming, from destroying our oceans, from pumping more chemicals into our atmosphere, from patenting everything that they can, including life itself. And they start wars. Wars are started between countries over profit. And it is a system of dictatorship where you have the CEOs with these massive salaries that don't actually do any work, and workers that have absolutely no say. And finally, I call this brainwashing. If government were to say something, they tell you something, then it's considered propaganda. But when a company does it, it's called advertising. See, capitalism requires the largest propaganda system the world has ever known, because it has to convince us that it has to work. It turns people into consumers through marketing, through advertising, through entertainment, through all these news. So millions of people are employed all around the world to bring their creativity into how to propagate a system that they know is bad. How they can twist our feelings of love and desire and human solidarity and fairness, but it's actually manipulating us. You see all the advertisements, and you know what I'm talking about. That's what capitalism does. And every one of us has been somehow or the other twisted by this. It has affected us on every level. The minute you turn the TV on, the minute you open up your phone, we are flooded with aggressive advertising and marketing of things that we don't need. Things that we will buy, that we will pour our money into, and then we buy it and we don't need it. Someone has made a profit, but it's a waste in our house, and it has put us into more financial bondage. So that was just an overview of what capitalism is. And we're going to look now and see how these people responded. Verse 3 from Judges chapter 4. It says that the children of Israel cried out to the Lord, for Jabin had 900 chariots of fire, and for 20 years he harshly oppressed Israel. So when you look at the system, when you look at ambition, when you look at career, if you look at the reason that you wake up every day and you brush your teeth and you put on your clothes and you kiss your spouse goodbye and you leave your children and you get into that car and you go to work and you're working and there's no reward. Maybe you didn't get a salary. Maybe you're a small business owner and you're working and nothing is working. out, and your children are hungry, and you haven't paid your bill, and the banks are on you, and the creditors are on you, and you look and you think, what can I do? How do I get out of the system? Because I've started this business. Maybe you're a worker. Maybe you're a low-end worker. Maybe you're a laborer. You wake up every day and you go to work and you're trying to make ends meet. You're earning this mere salary. It doesn't cover everything. You're cutting costs. There are bills to pay, and there's more bills to pay, and there's more bills to pay. And you think, how am I ever going to get out of this? The banks, they own everything. The corporate companies, they own everything. It looks like the rich are just getting richer, and we are just struggling and struggling. And then now with COVID-19, and you see how capitalism has fallen. You see how big corporations have now reduced in size. You see just how big the debt is everywhere. We're not talking millions anymore. We're talking billions and trillions. And you just think, how am I going to do it? This enemy is so big, 900 chariots. The system is overwhelming. This is a giant with technology that many of us will never ever completely understand. You see, this giant is light years ahead of us. They planned what your end is going to look like. In fact, they've planned what your children's end is going to look like. By the time your children come to this point, you might have died, or they might have died, but they've made their profits. By the time our children have moved into this, they would have moved on. 9 is the number of perfection in numerology, in biblical numerology. This enemy has perfected this model. 20, it's 10 plus 10. In numerology, that's double judgment. 10 is the number of the law. It's the number of judgment. This is a double judgment. And we cannot overcome this enemy without grace. We need supernatural endowment that comes from the Lord in order to overcome this giant. And you know what? God has an answer to this crisis. And we're going to look at that answer in the next session. So I pray that you were blessed. I pray that you were stimulated. I pray that your brain has started working, and you've started looking at your life and looking at how capitalism has come into the church and how it's flooded us. And we're going to look to see how we're going to overcome this. Amen. God bless you.